Well, thank you for joining me for my webinar today. It's great to have a wonderful group. I've had nearly 400 register for this webinar, and you may be watching it live, obviously, or watching the recording at a future time. So thanks again for tuning in. I've got a lot packed into today's webinar, and it's great to be with you in this virtual format. So we're going to take a look at from inquiry to enrollment, understanding the admission sales process. Just a little bit about myself. My company's Enrollment Catalyst, and I primarily work with pre-K through 12th grade schools, primarily in the United States, although I've worked with some schools outside of the country. And so you may be interested in checking out my website and the resources that I have available. Many of you know about my blog, and I regularly write about enrollment and marketing strategies that work in schools, and so you can check that out. Make sure you're subscribing to my blog. I send out a new blog post every Tuesday morning. And so it's a great opportunity to be able to read what I'm thinking and some of the things that I'm seeing in the world of private school enrollment and marketing. So what do I do? My work is a lot like going to the gym. Now, certainly, if you're into fitness or keeping healthy, you might go to the gym to be able to work out and you put your own plan and program in place. But sometimes you need to hire a personal trainer, someone who will come alongside and assess what you're doing to give you direction and provide that accountability. And that's essentially what I do through my Enrollment Catalyst program. And I can accomplish that either through an on-site visit or through a virtual assessment. In fact, I've got a couple schools lined up here in April. I'm going to be going to Minneapolis to work with a school and also to Louisiana to work with another school there. And I've been all over the last several weeks in San Diego, Atlanta, Orlando, just to name a few areas that I've been working with schools. And one of the things that I love to do is to highlight the different schools that I'm working with. So you'll hear some examples today from some of the schools that I've partnered with over the years. But you see some of the selfies of schools that I visited recently. And that's one of my approaches whenever I go to a school. I want to take a selfie and be able to post that on social media. I also have a bunch of other targeted solutions that I offer schools, whether it's training for your school ambassador program, a secret shopper experience where I can go in and go through the process of what a prospective parent goes through at your school. And you see the list. So there may be something that is interesting to you that you want to check out. And you notice the QR codes. I've got a bunch of QR codes that are displayed throughout this presentation. I'm going to send you a copy of the slide deck so you can access this later, but you may be interested in checking out some of my additional solutions. For example, I'm running a bunch of parent and employee satisfaction surveys right now. So that's another offering that I provide to schools that I'm partnering with. One of my partners out there in the marketing world is North Star Marketing. Andy Lynch is a good friend of mine. He's the owner of the company. He has a webinar coming up later on in April, and he's going to be talking about pursuing excellence in school branding. So I would love for you all to sign up for this and support him and to be able to attend this webinar. It'd be a great opportunity to learn from him as he focuses in on the world of brand. So what are we going to do today? We're going to focus in on the admissions process, looking at that from inquiry to enrollment. We're going to look at 3 foundational concepts and 6 key steps. As is typical in my webinars and workshop presentations, I pack a lot into the hour together. If you do have a question, feel free to jot it into the question box. I'll engage with those at the very end of the presentation. So you can feel free to type that out whenever that question comes to mind throughout our time together. And again, as a reminder, you're going to be getting a copy of the recording as well as a slide deck. So don't feel like you have to take a ton of notes during our time together. I really want you to listen and just absorb what I have to say. One other thing before we jump in is some of the presentation today is taken from a deep dive that Andy Lynch and I did about a month ago in Orlando. We had an on-site workshop, 2.5 days with nearly 50 school leaders, where we really took an in-depth look at admissions. This was our 3rd workshop. We're known as the Enrollment Marketing Geeks. And so if you haven't been following us, you want to make sure you do that. There's a lot of resources Andy and I are going to be in a planning meeting next week, and we're going to be working out the details for our upcoming workshops. We plan to host some one-day events across the United States and some deeper dive types of in-depth workshops that you may be interested in attending. So a lot of resources that we have available on that website. So let's dive in. We're going to take a look at some foundational concepts of admissions. And as I titled this, it's really understanding the sales process. Because as we think about admissions, it's truly about sales, and you're the guide. So I have a picture of the university that I graduated from in Michigan. So I went to college there for 4 years, obviously, and then right out of college, they hired me to be an admissions counselor. That was my first real full-time job right out of college. I had been very involved in my college as student government president, and so they saw me as a natural fit to be able to sell the experience at the university. So that was really my first sales experience. So I gave tours, I followed up with prospective students and worked with prospective families, really went through the entire admissions process. I was in that role for 12 years, actually worked my way up to the executive director of enrollment management. And so my background is all in university admissions and marketing. But what I've done today is I've applied that to the private school world. So the last 13 years, I've been working specifically in the pre-K through 12th grade world, nearly 500 schools. So I'm bringing that level of insight and expertise to our webinar today. I did notice that there were a number of individuals from colleges and universities that signed up for this webinar. Not to disappoint you, but this is going to be focused in on the pre-K through 12th grade world. So certainly you can apply some of what I'm going to be talking about to your world, but I wanted you to understand that as we jump in. So sometimes we think about sales and it's kind of a dirty word. We have these images that come to mind about that used car salesman and how they're really trying to sell you whatever they have in their lot to try to make their quota for the month and to be able to receive their commission. And they'll do anything and everything and what it takes to be able to make that sale. That's not what I'm talking about today when it comes to admissions and focusing in on sales. I like to equate it to this path. Um, in the summertime and in the fall, my wife and I, we relocate from sunny Florida, where it becomes really, really hot and humid, to northern Michigan. And so we're real close to Lake Michigan and some of the fabulous trails connected with the Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes. And so you have the opportunity, at least I do in the summertime, to go on these hikes, to go on these trails. And some of it is just breathtaking. You wouldn't even think that this is overlooking Lake Michigan, but it is. This is the Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes. It's one of the regular trails that my wife and I will hike. We can actually walk from our house to this trail and be on a 4-mile round trip. And it's wonderful. So if you were coming to visit me, I would be your guide in taking you on this trip on these trails because you probably haven't experienced them before. Let me just give you a taste of what the end result of this trail looks like. So this is overlooking the Empire Bluff. It's the Empire Bluff Trail, and you can see the Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes down below, but it's just an incredible, breathtaking experience. You wouldn't necessarily think that Michigan actually has a place like this, but it does. And so I spent a lot of time there. And so why am I showing you about these trails and the beauty of the landscape in northern Michigan? Well, it's truly about the journey that you're on in admissions, as well as the prospective parents that you're relating to. They're all on a journey. And your role in this process is to be a guide. So again, if you came and visited me in northern Michigan, I would be your guide to show you which direction to go on, which trails to consider. I would help you get to where you wanted to go. And that's essentially what your role is in admissions, is to be that guide. Some of you have read Donald Miller's book, Story Brand, and you've applied this to your marketing, your branding framework in your schools. And I like his illustration, his framework that he gives in his book. He talks about that you're the guide. When you're in sales, when you're in marketing, when you're working for your business, as he talks about, or a nonprofit, in our case, a school. You're the guide taking the characters who are the prospective parents who come to you with a problem or a need. Maybe their child isn't fitting in at their current school. Maybe there's a bullying issue. Maybe they just moved into your area and they're looking for an educational solution for their family. Well, you're the guide. You're the expert who can show them your school, and you can guide them through the process and determine if this is going to be the right school to be able to meet their needs. So I love this framework that he provides within his book. So as we think about admissions, we think about it from a sales perspective, but I wanted you to put in your mind that it's more about you being a guide. We're not necessarily about quotas or meeting commissions. It's truly about guiding the right fit families to our schools to make the decisions, the best decisions to hopefully enroll for their child or their children. Now, secondly, we want to look at another foundational aspect of admissions, and that's roles, structure, and reporting. And there's so much that I could have packed into this session. It could be really a whole hour on this number 2 point, but I see that there's 5 key qualities in admissions. So if I'm looking for someone to take on a role in admissions, in fact, I'm helping Christian Academy of Knoxville search for a director of admissions. School of 1,000 students, their current director is retiring. So if you're interested in that type of position, you may want to reach out. Great school, great opportunity to lead a fantastic department. But 5 key qualities. I'm looking for someone who's proactive. They're not going to sit around and try to figure out, what to do by having someone tell them what to do. They're going to really be proactive and intentional. They're going to be personable. Now, that's one of the reasons why I was hired in admissions right off the bat back in my college days. I had personality. I could connect with people. I could also be persuasive, and you want that in admissions, but not obnoxious to the point where you're just selling to sell, but you're trying to persuade and guide and lead that prospective parent. They're certainly process oriented because there's processes within admissions that we need to pay attention to. And certainly you need to be people focused because admissions is about relating to people. It's not about sitting at a desk in the corner. You really need to get out and talk to people, give tours, to be able to network with people in the community. So as I think about admissions, I believe that a centralized enrollment effort works best. So some schools that I work with, I'll see this decentralized approach where really no one's owning admissions or enrollment. Hopefully that's not the case for your school. But if it is, we really need this centralized effort where we're focusing all of admissions and enrollment activities through one person or one department. And ideally, you could have this model in place with a head of school. You would have a director of Marcom, a director of admission, a director of development. This is the typical advancement model. Now, depending upon the size of your school, you may have a director of advancement that's providing leadership to all 3 of those departments. There's pros and cons to both experiences, but one of the models that I like the best is to take and combine enrollment and marketing together, because I believe that marketing should be about driving interest in the school, particularly for enrollment. So that's where you'd want to have that director of enrollment and marketing providing that leadership. Marketing is more about developing and generating leads than it is about focusing in on the development side of the equation. So that's why I like to group them together and then appropriately staff your department based upon the size of your school and some of your needs. So as we look at admissions responsibilities, it's everything from generating those leads to nurturing them to working with campus visits. This is really not rocket science here. We all know this, but it's important to restate this. But the point I make with lead generation is that there's some sharing with marketing. So as you look at marketing, marketing should be about driving an interest in the school, generating those leads. They should also be focused in on storytelling and content marketing, with generating awareness for the school and the community, and also those internal communications. So as you look at the department and your roles and your structures, it's important to consider that you need goals in place. And I'm a huge advocate for having goals to drive the admissions effort. Like if I was working with your school right now, I'd want to know how many new students are you trying to enroll this next year? What is your goal? And then can you back it up in your admissions funnel by having goals for the number of applications and visits and inquiries. But also, this is rarely the case in private schools where I'll see sales goals or really activity goals. So what do you do with your time? So when you're in the admissions office, how are you using your time to make phone calls, to send out emails, to send out text messages, to make any of those networking contacts, whatever it may be? Because the sales activities or what you do with your time should drive the results for what you're trying to reach. It should help you reach those enrollment goals. And most importantly, it's all about enrolling those right fit families because we're looking for the families who are going to be the best fit within our school. Especially if our school is full or we're nearing capacity, we may have to make decisions about who are those right fit families. Also, you need to be involved in measuring key metrics and it's certainly to use a database. And I know that there's all kinds of databases out there. I've been regularly involved at speaking at the Facts Elevate conference. I'll be there in Atlanta this summer, presenting 4 different workshops. That's a great system that provides a comprehensive administrative database system for schools. There's others out there, certainly. Now, if you're looking for a database that's just focused in on admissions and enrollment, I would encourage you to take a look at Inquiry Tracker. This is a Australian-based system. It's, as you can see, it's a fully integrated CRM, focuses in on event management, database, online admissions. It's a standalone system, so it's not going to do everything else that a typical administrative database platform would do. But if you're interested in this system, I've got a number of schools that I'm working with that are using Inquiry Tracker. It's very affordable, and it will help you accomplish what you need to on the admissions side of things. So the things that we're talking about today, you need a system in place that you can actually use to your benefit. And then as we think about admissions roles, I wrote a blog post on this recently. So certainly the admissions staff needs to be sales centric. That's what we're talking about. Relationally rooted, again, having those relationships with families, mission focused. You're about your school and trying to attract families who are going to be mission appropriate. You're conveying your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. You're not selling a widget or a tool. You're selling an overall educational experience, a journey for their child. You need to be goal oriented and activity driven. And we just talked about those areas. So great blog post. At least I think it was great. I wrote it and you can check that out on my website. And then third, as we think about a foundational concept, this relational approach, because what does admissions deal with? Admissions deals with families. You're working with families, whether they're in person or you're meeting them out at a fair or at a networking event or maybe a feeder school, or they're coming in for a campus visit, or you're talking to them on the phone. You are focused in on building a relationship. And so that should be your goal. So sometimes what I see school leaders do is that, you're focused so much on regurgitating a bunch of stuff about your school. It's not what admissions is about. If a prospective parent calls me and I'm the admissions director, it's not my goal to all of a sudden start spewing all this information about my school. It's my goal actually to get to know the parent. And I always find it, a negative approach if you're in admissions and you start with, hey, do you have any questions? No, I just started to investigate your school. I don't even know what my questions are at this point. Or sometimes I run into admission staff members and they just talk all the time. That should not be your goal. In fact, let's look at the opposite as you work on building relationships with prospective parents. Think about these open-ended types of questions. Tell me about your family and your child. What led you to reach out to our school today? Why did you call? How did you find us? What are you looking for in a school for your child? Tell me about your child's current school and your experience. Why did you choose to visit our school? So these are the types of questions that you should be asking. In a way, your job in admissions is more about asking questions. Remember, you're the guide. You're trying to guide the prospective parent through this process. Now you have all the knowledge that you need about your school that you can interject at the appropriate times. But let that parent talk. You'll find out a ton of information about that parent and that journey. So again, these first three are really just foundational because what I wanted to spend most of our time on today is the admissions process by looking at the 6 key steps. So again, this is going to be an overview. I have packed a lot of information in here for you. Certainly, if you want to take a deeper dive, um, Andy and I are talking about hosting those types of deeper dive workshops in the future. We had a great one focusing on admissions just a few weeks ago in Orlando. And if you really want to get down deep into this area, I would encourage you to take a look at some of the offerings that we'll have in the future. So let's take a look at the 6 steps. So the first step is generating the lead. And it's kind of the obvious one. You know, none of these are rocket science at this point. It's really stating the obvious, but I wanted to give you that framework. So you got to start with generating the leads. And this is a combined effort between admissions and marketing. So if you have a marketing director at your school or marketing department, that person or that department should number one be focused in on how can we generate leads for admissions? How can we fill the pipeline? Because admissions needs to have those leads to be able to work with in the process. So how do prospective parents discover your school? Well, if you've been following me over the years that I've been involved in my work with Enrollment Catalyst and as a coach, you know, you'll know that it's not about traditional advertising. You know, these, I showed the yellow pages on here. I remember early on, I went to a school that was investing 20,000 in yellow pages. That was before the days of the web and what we can do online. But even at that point, it's like you're spending all that money when traditionally prospective parents aren't going to find and discover your school through these traditional advertising strategies. Even today, of investing in print advertising or billboards or radio, TV, I'm not totally against all that, but I want to make sure we maximize the other strategies. And that's where we need to be focusing in on word of mouth and online. So how does a prospective parent discover your school? Either through word of mouth, hearing about it from a friend, or in their own research online. They're going to go and they're going to Google schools near me, and they're going to look for what shows up on that front page. Are there any ads that rise to the top? Any listings that are in that, first page or first set of listings? That's going to be important. But word of mouth is that primary way. I mean, I always ask this question on surveys and in focus group meetings. How did you hear about the school? And it's over and over again. Over the years, it's always been about word of mouth. So that's the irony there, is that we know that that's the case. And if we were having a conversation, you would share that with me about your school. However, we don't focus in on those word of mouth marketing strategies. So while word of mouth will occur naturally, and it does, people are going to talk, and it's going to be good and it's going to be bad. We have no control over that. Our job, though, as an admissions director or a marketing director or as a team, is to inspire more of that word of mouth. We need more of it in our community. So I wrote an ebook a few years ago on the 9 drivers of word of mouth. This would be a whole session in and of itself. So I just wanted to quickly give a nod to this, and you could access this ebook and you could learn about the 9 drivers, because you could actually put a plan in place to drive more word of mouth, and you would do this at your school through all these 9 areas. I also wrote a blog post recently, and there's some great ideas in there about how you can harness word of mouth in private school marketing. So again, a lot of resources on my website. My school ambassador training program is something you might be interested in as well. But the other side of it through generating leads is online marketing. And so how is a parent going to typically discover your school? Well, they might do it through online research. Even if they heard about it from a friend, they're going to go online and they're going to take a look at your website. Hopefully you have a great website. Or they may search for it in Google and be able to look at the schools in their area. So again, this is just a quick introduction. There's so much more that could be shared here, but here's an example of Hill Country Christian School of Austin, Texas, a school that both I and Andy and his team at North Star Marketing have worked with. In fact, this is one of their website designs. You'll notice right at the outset of their homepage, right at the top, clearly you understand who they are. They're a Christ-centered learning built on classical tradition. So obvious. Christian school, classical education. Right away, there's two main call to actions. There's the inquire button over on the right-hand side that floats up and down on the page. Even more important is the opportunity to take a closer look. And that's where the parent can get their parent information packet. It's downloadable content. So when you get a prospective parent to go through the search and maybe click on an ad or see your website and go there for the first time, you want to engage with them so that they'll be able to respond, because we're talking about admissions. We're trying to generate leads, right? So what a swing and a miss from a number of schools that I've seen over the years that don't even have an inquiry opportunity, are not using downloadable content. And where does that downloadable content button take you? Takes you to a landing page. Are you searching for a private school in Austin? Our parent info packet helps you choose wisely. Notice on this form, 6 required fields only. That's really the max that you would want. I would go optional with the phone number, but they chose to keep that in place. Parents know what they're going to receive. That's another key point of trying to generate the lead. So they enter in their name, email address, they're going to get this parent information packet. And then it begins an email sequence that they're going to receive a series of messages about the school. So as you think about some of these key online lead generation strategies, whether it's paid search ads, effective call to actions, downloadable content, those are 3 of the top ones. You may be interested in checking out my friends at North Star Marketing. You can go to their website, ask for Micah Fox, speak to him directly. He'll guide you through the process of understanding the solutions that they could put in place. We work well together. That's why, again, Andy and I we co-lead a lot of webinars and workshops helping schools. So some sales strategies in step number 1. Your goal really is to motivate that prospective parent to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested. And they can pick up the phone, they can call, they can email, or they can complete a form. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You want to communicate who you are and the value for why the parent should consider your school. And you want to connect to their journey and the pain point that they may be experiencing. And you want to give parents a reason to inquire. Don't just ask them to fill out a long form and give them no reason to fill it out or no real information about what they're going to receive. Actually do what you saw on the Hill Country Christian website. So as you think about this inquiry form, make sure you have this option on your homepage and in your admissions section. It's a miss if you don't have this available. Limit your fields on your form. Make sure you're just focusing in on the most important information. Give parents a reason to inquire. Don't just say, here, fill out this long 20 field form and to request information and you have no idea what you're going to get. Utilize a content download like an ebook that operates as a lead magnet. It's going to help you generate leads. You can track the effectiveness of your leads. So again, number 1 is an overlap between admissions and marketing. And you have to be about generating leads because that's where it all starts for admissions. You have this lead come in to your office. And now you need to know what you need to do with it. So that's step number 2. You have a lead. Now what? Oh, yay, I got a lead. Hooray. They're coming in. Now what do we do? So it's a lot like dating. Last month was Valentine's Day, and so you may have a significant other. I brought my wife home some chocolates from her favorite store, and then we went out for dinner. It was a beautiful, wonderful experience for us. But you think about that courting relationship, as you develop that initial relationship, there's an opportunity to get to know each other. And so typically there might be gifts, there's cards, there's notes, there's communication, There's the process of trying to determine, are we compatible? Is this a relationship that I want to pursue? Well, the same is happening with your prospective parents and for you in admissions. Do you want to pursue this relationship with this prospective family? Are they look like the right fit? Same for the prospective family. They're thinking, is this the right school for my child? Can I see my child here? So here's some top 10 mistakes of lead nurturing. And by lead nurturing, I mean follow up. In other words, you get the lead. Now, what do you do with that lead? So I felt like communicating the negative side of things would lead you towards what you need to do on the positive end. So number one, sending an automated email that's impersonal, doesn't tell the parent anything, and states that someone from admissions will contact them soon. So I've done this over and over again in my secret shopping experience as I prepare for workshops, as I am engaged individually with schools in this process. And I've seen a lot of these. Sure, you got this automated email set up. When was the last time you looked at it? You don't even know what you're sending the prospective parent. Remember, that's the first impression. If it doesn't use their name, that's a miss. Doesn't tell them anything, that's a miss. A lot of times I see, thank you for inquiring. Someone from our admissions office will contact you soon. Well, I just filled out a form and that's the best you can do. So this is one of my top mistakes that I see in schools. Number two, letting a database control your first impression. So databases are databases and they're great. However, it's important that you think about their process, um, how their automated messages are set up, what the content is. Don't take it right out of the box and just apply it. You need to tweak it, customize it for your school, and make sure you know what your first impression is. Don't let, oh, Siri's talking to me over here. So Siri, I'm fine, thank you. But the
Okay, let me know if I can help with anything.
See, Siri's very helpful over here. So, but you think about it, don't let a database control that first impression. Focusing on only on getting the parent to visit. So keep this in mind. If I'm a prospective parent and I raise my hand and say I'm interested, I may not be ready to take the next step and come visit yet. I may need to know some more information. There may need to be some courting that takes place. Again, think about that dating relationship. So you're getting to know the person through a series of contacts before you might meet in person. And so they may not be ready. So think about that you might jump automatically to, hey, come on campus to visit, but they may not be ready for that. So what are you going to do in between? Number four is failing to contact an inquiry. This is a no-brainer. If someone inquires off your website, you need to contact them. And so I see lots of misses here, or waiting too long to respond. We're in a world today where immediacy is what people expect. I fill out a form, I expect to hear from someone right away. So 24 hours has been the typical rule, but I think that's even too long. That should really be the same day, or maybe within a few hours of getting back to that lead. Only following them up once, this is a swing and a miss. I see this over and over again. I call it the wait and see approach. You might have a great contact with a prospective parent where you have that follow up connection with them, and then you just sit back and relax, wait and see what's going to happen. You should be proactive and intentional, providing additional follow up. Number seven, not identifying the staff member responsible for follow up. So this is a larger office. You may have 3 or 4 on your team. Who's handling the follow up with the inquiries? Well, we all jump in and we all kind of do it. If no one really owns that inquiry, it's going to be less intentional with the follow up. So I believe there needs to be ownership. Relying upon only one method of reaching and following up with a family. I've heard this in actually one of the schools I'm working with. The admissions staff member said, I just call people. I don't email them. I don't text them. I only call people. Some people don't respond to phone calls. So if you're only calling them, you're going to be missing out on the opportunity to connect with prospective parents. So you need to Use all the different ways of contacting, from phone and email and text and even mailings. And number 9, lack of awareness of your own automated and personal follow-up process. It surprises me how many school leaders don't even know what their system is in place. I talked about that automated email that comes. I've had experiences where I've been planning for a conference and I've gone and secretly shopped all the schools who would be attending, and you'd be surprised what I received. I remember one email that I received. It said, "Dear Sir slash Madam, comma, thank you for your interest in our school." That was the email. That was it. No personalization, really, offensive in a sense, because it was a stock email that no one had put any thought into. No plan for follow-up. This is probably the biggest swing and a miss here, where admission staff members don't have a plan for what they're going to try to accomplish with their follow-up. So you need to develop a plan. And this is where I would spend some time if I was working with your school, trying to coach you through the development of your plan. But just some key principles is that it needs to be combined with personal follow-up from the admission staff. So if I'm the admission staff member at a school, I have a group of inquiries that I'm working with. I'm personally following up with those inquiries, always trying to move them to the next step or move them out of the funnel. They're no longer a fit, they're no longer interested. There also needs to be an automated sequence of emails that are going out that includes messages, stories, and call to actions. I always like to encourage school leaders to think about keeping your school in front of prospective parents. This is very important because when they inquire, you don't want to give up with them after just one contact. You want to keep in front of them. So it could be an email sequence that you develop. Here's one from a school that I've worked with, and it shows one long email kind of broken up, but it's attractive. It includes some pictures, some content, some call to actions. So you could design a series like this. Perhaps you could use MailChimp or Constant Contact, or maybe a system like Inquiry Tracker to be able to put this in place. But your personal follow-ups, I wanted to just spend a moment on this, is that you need to use a variety of contacts. And I'm an advocate for using phone, email, text messaging, and regular mailings. They all have their purposes, and they all have an opportunity to get in front of a prospective parent. Here's the reality. We don't know what's going to be most appealing to a prospective parent. I may love to get a phone call, and I'm going to see you call and I'm going to answer. Probably not the case though. I'm going to let it go to voicemail, and then I'm going to decide, do I know that person? Am I going to call them back? But if you send me a text message, that's going to show up right on the top of my phone. I can see what you're trying to accomplish, who you are. If it's something that I've just initiated in the form of a contact through an inquiry or maybe scheduled a campus visit, then that's going to help me focus in on that text message. But think about having a goal. I remember working with Rudy Gesh at Eastern Christian years ago, and he had a daily goal for he and his staff. Before they left the office for the day, they were to make 10 outgoing contacts to prospective families. So if you have that mindset, then you're going to make it a priority. 10 may be the number, 5 may be the number. It may vary from day to day, but the point is you have to be intentional about your follow-up. Use text messaging. We can spend a lot of time on this, but the point is that uh, prospective parents are glued to their phone, especially younger generation with text messaging. That's the way that they communicate. They may never, ever open up your email, but they may read your text message. So it's a great way to get in front of them. And I would encourage you to use text messaging. You could also use personalized videos. This is a great way to get in front of a prospective parent in a personal way. I've used Bonjoro before. There's other programs like BombBomb. You could use it at particular points or specific points in your admissions funnel in your follow-up contact. But map your inquiry process. Know what the steps are and put that in place at your school. So just some important strategies in this step. Remember, you're the guide. You're helping the family determine if your school is the right fit. Follow-up's going to work best in the course of that relationship. You're getting to know that family What you've learned along the way should inform you about how you need to follow up and what you can build on in the next contact. You are selling an educational experience that's life-changing for their child. It's not just a simple widget or something you can buy off a shelf. It's totally different. Make it your goal to move that parent to the next step. Whenever you contact someone, have a reason for your contact. Try to move them to the next step and use all forms of communication. Be persistent, don't give up, keep at it. So here's a blog post that I wrote on 6 key ingredients for effective admissions follow-up. You can take a look at more detail. And then if you're interested in my secret shopper program, I'm doing this for a school out in Washington State right now, where I'm really going through the process of what a prospective parent would go through as they're searching for their school online. So number 3 is campus visit. So you've generated the lead, you've had a nurturing process, at least a first time point of contact, maybe follow up with them, and now you're working with them on getting them to campus. So you want to make sure on your website you have all these things in place. I don't have time to go through these in detail, but have a campus visit call to action. You know, that needs to be a menu item underneath admissions. Make that form simple. You could even use a program like Calendly to be able to schedule those visits in real time. Inquiry Tracker and Final Sites program does this. Have instructions for visiting campus. You know, really dive into the detail. So look at Eastern Christian's website. You look in their homepage, schedule a tour, the button on the right-hand side, underneath admissions, campus visits. So I click on that. I see clearly the different ways that I can visit campus. Make it clear to me as a prospective parent how I can come visit your campus. I can either go to an open house, I can set up a personal or group tour, shadow, or a high school preview day. Make it unique, obviously, to your school. Think about those first impressions. Again, this is a whole webinar in and of itself, and I hope to be able to provide this webinar down the road. But you think about when a parent is driving up to campus, what do they see? What about the signage, the first impression? Is there a reserved parking place? Is there a welcome sign with the names of the family on it? Is there a receptionist who's greeting them in a friendly manner? Or are they too busy to even pay attention that I've arrived? An entry area that tells the story of your school. So Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy in Melbourne is a school that actually hired me to come in for a day to do a full assessment of their campus visit experience. I looked at everything from the point of arrival, actually before that, to scheduling the visit, the point of arrival, the actual meeting with admissions, the tour of campus, the closing the deal, and the follow-up. So that could be something you're interested in, but you see the personalized welcome sign. I've seen this plenty of times in schools that I've worked with. So if you hire me to come visit you at your school, I hope you have a personalized welcome sign, not only for me, but also your campus visitors. You could also do this for your admissions visitors when they arrive for their parking. You know, you don't want to take out the mystery of what it's like to arrive on your campus for the first time. Clear signage, clear parking space. And so there's different ways that you could accomplish that as you think about highlighting and reserving a space for your families. I love what Florence Christian did. Um, Sandy Bryant, who's their admissions director who I had coached, she took a picture of the family by the sign, and she used that as a follow-up piece in a note card. Great first impression, reminder of their visit. She also put that visit on her bulletin board in her office, reminded her of everyone who came on campus to visit. So when you think about that visit, you want to make a great first impression, and then you want to be able to greet the family, spend some time with them, getting to know them, and then you want to take them on a tour. And the tour needs to be more than just talking about and showing, now here's kindergarten, and here's what we do in kindergarten. It's really interacting with the family. I love the situations where I've been in schools, and Holy Trinity is a great example of this, where they had student greeters in every class. So when I walked into the elementary classes with the admissions director, with Sharon, And she acknowledged me to the class. The teacher welcomed me and sent over the greeters for the week, a boy and a girl, to come over and be able to welcome me and tell me what they were doing in class at that moment. Now that's impressive. I also think you need story stops. I wrote about this in one of my recent blog posts. So think about as you walk through campus, where will you stop and tell stories? Here's a couple examples of schools that I love and their approach. Pacifica Christian High School, Santa Monica. They're using rented facilities here, but they've really taken the approach of highlighting visually on the walls of their building different stories. And here's Jim, their head of school, and he's stopping to tell me a story behind this picture. And so that's a story stop. And so as you walk around your campus, do you have opportunities where you're stopping and telling stories? You could do that about the arts program, about the travel program, about your scholars program, about athletics. So you get the idea. Another example with Lexington Christian in Kentucky, here's the history of their school. So you can stop and you can highlight the history or a time to remember when the campus was built, or you see these banners on their campus highlighting different programs. So those are great stopping points to be able to talk about the programs that are offered. And obviously, as a Christian school, Bible verses, whatever's appropriate for your school, your context, you'd want to be able to communicate, highlighting your graduating classes, telling the stories. After the tour, great time to be able to sit down with that prospective parent to try to close the deal. I mean, we're talking about sales, right? So they've really been on a test drive of your school through the tour. So you want to review the application process. You want to talk about those next steps. I think it's important to actually ask the parent at this point. So what'd you think? Can you see your child at our school? Get them to respond. What do you think about applying? Is that something you could do in the next couple of weeks? So you're leading them. You're trying to close that deal by giving them direction. You're getting their reaction. They may say, yeah, this is a great school. I want my child here. We're going to be completing the application. Gives you a reason to follow up with them. They may say, I'm not so sure. We're looking at some other schools and we're not confident. Gives you some opportunity to follow up with that prospective parent. So make sure you follow up with a personal note. Send something that is maybe through email or a handwritten note to thank them for visiting. We don't have time to talk about open houses or events, but that's another way to attract families to your campus. So step number 3 is the campus visit experience. And this is the goal. It's often said that if I can just get them to campus, I know that they're going to potentially choose our school. I can sell them on our school, but you're focused in on the family and trying to determine from your perspective, are they the right fit for your school, while they're trying to do that at the same time. Remember, you're a guide in this process. You want to create that vision for what the family can see through that campus visit experience. Can they see their child here? Can they see themselves as a parent in your community? And then close the deal. Try to wrap up that campus visit by creating some urgency for them to take the next step. So you may be interested in a blog post that I wrote recently on transforming your school's campus visit from routine to remarkable. This would hopefully be a webinar that I would offer down the road as well, but check this out. There's some good advice in there. Number 4 is the application and the wait pool management. So as you think about your application, again, you're trying to move them down through the funnel, and you're trying to get them to commit. So you want to have your application available. Typically, it's best to have that available in the fall. I would say no later than October 1st. I've seen some schools that have waited later, and that's really an old school model. Get through enrollment first, and we open up applications. You want to have parents applying early. And then as you think about your application process, make sure that it's streamlined. Use a priority deadline to create some urgency. If you can have a fee or deposit in place after they've gone through the application process, that's going to help make that financial commitment for the family. But clearly outline this process on your website. Here's 3 easy steps. Step number 1, apply online. Step number 2, the interview. Step number 3, enroll. And some other examples of other schools that I've worked with over the years. You want to communicate your process clearly on your website, in your printed pieces, in your packet that you're giving prospective parents when they come visit. And make sure that they know what that process is that's specific for your school. Here's Augusta Prep. And so you can see that their application's open on October 1st, and then they can go through the process. They make their decision on February 15th, and that's when they notify families. And then the accepted families have the opportunity to submit, reserve their place for the incoming class. They have to send in their deposit and their contract by March 1st. So they have a clear timeline, and it's outlined on their website. Same with Christian Academy of Knoxville. Again, you have the perspective of when their application opens, priority consideration, and then it's rolling thereafter. Your goal through the application process, really throughout the entire admissions experience, is to determine that right family, right fit family. Who are they? What do they look like? What are you looking for? Andy and I suggested at our workshop and over our consulting work with schools that you develop a rubric. What is a rubric? It's simply a framework for helping you determine who's going to be the best fit for your school. Really, what are the characteristics, the qualities you're looking for? It needs to be unique for your school. I can't show you a rubric and say this is what you should apply at your school. You need to develop your own. And then you're grading your applicants, your families on that rubric. Basically, it's who are you looking for? How do your prospective families match up to what you're looking for? And then as you consider that weight pool potential management, um, I wanted to make sure you understood the difference between wait list and weight pool. Wait list is basically first in, first out. Weight pool is that you're all the prospective parents are going through the application process and then they're placed in a pool. And then you're determining who's going to be the best fit based upon the seats that are available. And so it's a little bit different in the approach. I typically recommend the weight pool approach, and you can look at how you're going to process that. I recommend that you highlight your process on your website, your policy, so that people know. Now, you don't have to give every detail. You don't have to tell everything about how you're doing this, but you do need to outline at least what your weight pool is and how that works, and even some frequently asked questions. Mounds Park Academy in the Twin Cities does a great job of this in their admissions section of their website. And then you may want to think about communicating even on your website, or at least to prospective parents when they're coming in, where are you at in your different grade levels. So here's an example of what Hill Country Christian had done in the past with communicating different grade levels and whether they had openings, or if they're in a weight pool situation, or if they're full. So some sales strategies in this step: create urgency. You can do that through timelines, priority deadlines, weight pools. You're evaluating those right fit families. You're using the rubric that you put in place, and communicate throughout this process. It's important that prospective parents know where they're at in the process. You may not be able to give them specifics about where they're at in your weight pool, but it's important to communicate with them so that they know at least that they're in the pool, they're going to be considered should we have spots that open. There's a couple of webinars that Andy Lynch and I did through our Enrollment Marketing Geeks brand, featuring a couple schools that highlighted how they're involved in weight pool management. So you may be interested in going back and watching one of those webinars, and I have the QR codes for you there. Number 5 and number 6 are shorter in length, and we'll be able to get through this in the next few minutes here. But notification, how do you let the family or the student know that they've been admitted to your school? I encourage you to use all means. So phone call, certainly, email, put it in writing, maybe in a letter, send a video. It could be a personalized video, or you've seen those videos that schools will do, you're in. And so it's all these students that are welcoming them to their community. And once you offer that seat to that family, make sure that you have a way for them to commit. So they have to enroll, and they usually have to put in some financial means at that point, whether that's a deposit or a fee. And so that's where they're reserving that seat for their child. And I would give them a short period of time to be able to respond. I would also encourage you to think about giving a personal gift. Could be in the form of a welcome box. You see some examples here. This is St. Patrick's Episcopal Day School in Washington, D.C., school that I worked with last year. When I was there, it was actually a year ago this time, they had all their welcome boxes, welcome new wolfhound, lined up in the conference room, and you can see what they included in their gifts, gift box. And so just a great way to be able to say, you're going to be a new member of our community and you're important. I love this approach. This is Christian Academy in Knoxville. We've got you covered in prayer by the faculty, staff, and board of trustees. And they included a prayer blanket, or actually a blanket, with the logo of the school in the box. So you get the idea. Every family loves swag, especially when it's quality. Could also be a yard sign, welcome to the community. You could use your student ambassadors to help distribute those welcome boxes on yard signs. Great photo opportunity. But create urgency for the parent to enroll by submitting their deposit within a specific time frame. Reinforce that decision through the excitement. I mean, you're excited that you're choosing them to enroll in your school. You found a right fit family. So show some energy and enthusiasm in relating to that family, and then give them something. Everyone loves swag. This is going to reinforce their decision through this process. And number 6 is onboarding. So some ideas of what you could do. So what is onboarding? Onboarding is essentially what happens after they've enrolled. They may have enrolled already by now, but what's going to happen over the next 6 months? So you could hold a accepted student parent reception, providing opportunities to connect. I recommend monthly contacts at minimum, where you're communicating with these families, new family details. And this is not putting them on the list for your email newsletter that's going out to your current parents. Don't overwhelm them with that information yet. Communicate what's pertinent for them to know. Your website should have a page that highlights everything that a new family needs to know about the upcoming school year. Take the mystery out of starting the new school year by including that information, like Westminster Catawba Christian has done. You'll see that under the admissions section of their website. You can go to their website, wccs.org, and you can see this as the last menu item under admissions. Mentor families, the great way to provide connections with those new families coming into your school, providing that personal welcome, maybe an in-person get-together, connection events in the summertime, events, activities, mini family orientations, whatever it is, you're trying to bring them on board to your school community and take out the anxiety from starting a new school. So maybe it's play dates, or maybe it's orientation events that you have going on in the summer. And certainly have your head of school and principals call new families, especially after the school year begins, to check in on them. So that's part of your onboarding process, is to make sure that they feel welcomed and to answer questions, see if there's any issues that you can help with. And then make sure that throughout the beginning of the school year, that there's opportunities to get connected. So again, a new family joining your community may feel lost. It's your goal to be able to make that connecting point, and that's going to help you lead towards positive retention. And that's essentially, as we look at some sales strategies in this step, the onboarding process, the beginning of a retention effort. Just reaffirm to your new families that they made the right decision. I mean, that's critical to reinforce the decision that they made. Connect your families to the community, relieve their anxiety about starting in a new school, and then begin that handoff between admissions to the principals, the divisional leadership, the head of school for the daily educational experience. Your job at admissions is done once they show up on the first day of school. So we've gone through a lot here in the last hour with looking at really some foundational concepts for your admissions effort, and then considering the 6 steps in the admissions process. And so I want to engage with you in some questions, and I'm just pulling up the question box here. And it does look like there's some questions. I do offer a free consultation if I can help you in any way, and also talk to you about the ways that I can partner with your school. I would encourage you to consider that. So let's take a look at some of the questions here. At least I'll be able to here on the screen. So let me try to pull these up here in the end of the webinar so that you won't be able to see them. For some reason, I'm having a hard time pulling up these questions. So I want to take a look at this. Okay, here we go. Jessica asked a great question. How do you text without using your personal cell phone or program to use? So Haymarket is one program that a number of schools that I've worked with have used. Haymarket, H-E-Y Market, M-A-R-K-E-T. You can check that out online. Some of the platforms or database programs would allow you to text as well. So you could also have your school purchase a cell phone for you to use professionally. It's your admissions phone. So that's one way to do it. Tanya's asking such a lot. Excellent information. When I be on the West Coast for an event, Seattle area, we're working through that right now. We may not make it all the way to Seattle. We may be in California, but we're not sure yet. So I'll put in a good word for you, Tanya, and see what we can do. Have I done a blog and follow up with families once they're enrolled? I don't know if I have, but you can go to my website because I've been doing this for 13 years with my own website and blog content. So you could check out through my search bar opportunities that I have of what I've written. Here's a question. Can you show the weight pool grade level reds and green boxes again? I can't actually go back right now, but you'll be able to see that in the slide deck when I send it to you. You'll see the different classifications. Essentially, from what I remember, one is full, one is that they're in the weight pool, and the other one is that they're still accepting applications. So whatever colors you want to use, you can certainly do that. Tanya asked another question, blog for principals. Blog for how principals should take over from admissions. So yeah, I don't think I have one. So you're giving me some good topics that I can write on in the future. This is great. Janae mentions that she used Google Voice for texting. That works great. There's another option. Nelia is asking about the job in Nashville. It's actually in Knoxville at Christian Academy of Knoxville. You can reach out to me personally, and I'll give you that information through my website, or you can go online to their website. Just Google Christian Academy of Knoxville and go to their employment section, and you'll find out about that position. Melissa, our school is 80% international families. What's the best way to cultivate relationships with families with whom we are mainly working with agents? So, that's a whole different area. So certainly you're working through the agent. So it's courting the relationship with the agent primarily in the beginning. And then as that new family comes into the mix, you're developing a relationship with that family as well. So it's a little different approach and would take a little bit longer time to be able to discuss, but those relationships are important and you need to invest in both. Danelle is asking about interested in the order of the enrollment process. At what point should a family interview? I think it should come in after you've collected all the information and they've gone through an assessment. We really didn't talk about that, but it's really where you have an opportunity to review all that with a prospective family. So you need that knowledge as they've gone through the process to be able to interact with them in that interview. But great point. And see, I mentioned BombBomb for personalized video. Was there another vendor? Yeah, Bonjoro is another one. You can just Google also personalized videos, and there's other companies out there. Lauren's asking, great questions today, so thank you all. Do I recommend ever stopping admissions applications when the grade is so full? Yeah, definitely. I'm working with a school in Jacksonville, Florida. They opened up their applications on October 1st. They closed it off in early December because they had more applications than they could handle. So that could be something that you do. And you'll have to be the judge of whether you want to close that off or not. So WhatsApp, I can't talk. WhatsApp is used by Nelia to be able to communicate to text parents. Tanya mentioned that they're hiring a new head of school, but love would consider having consultant work with our principals on cultivating new families. Um, and see, Don is asking that they generate a lot of leads from digital advertising, relatively small marcoms, 2 people, and admissions offices with 4 people. Which department is the best to qualify these original leads? I think admissions. Um, again, the leads are coming in, so you want to be able to try to work with them and to qualify them in that process. So, a few thank yous, and then marketing events. Danielle is asking about marketing events, open houses, ideas for these. Yeah, there's a lot of great ideas out there. I personally like the open house that occurs during the daytime so that you don't have to bring in families and faculty and staff on the weekend or a weeknight, but that may not work for your school. So you have to contextualize it to see what works out best for your school and your environment. So feel free to reach out to me personally and I can certainly help you with that. So yeah, that was quite a blitz of questions, but if I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can email me. Um, that's the best way to reach me. You can go to my website and you can access lots of resources that I have available. And I am glad to help you in any way that I can. So thank you for tuning in today and watching this webinar. And I'll be letting you know of other webinars that'll either be coming up through what I will offer through Enrollment Catalyst and plus the Enrollment Marketing Geeks webinars. We have the show and tell shows that we'll be doing in the near future. So thank you so much, and hope you have a great rest of your admission season, and I'll look forward to interacting with you online. Thank you.